Hey YouTube, what's up? Thanks for tuning in. New gadget from WPL. Probably you've already seen it. A winch for the WPL C34 or other smaller crawlers. I'm really keen on this small tiny little winch because I did already want to install a winch in one of my trucks for quite a long time, but so far I only had those, from our 1 to 10 trucks, those big winches which are probably far too large for WPL trucks. So let's see how this small WPL winch will work. I do not know a lot about it so far because the description is quite poor. It doesn't say a lot. I did see one or two videos of RTR or Run That RC YouTube channel. Quite nice, but I guess he got some pre-release products, so because he didn't really show the packing and how to install, and I still do not know if this winch will work directly on the receiver or it does need a speed controller for controlling it as those winches do. So I'm curious. Let's open this sucker up and see what's inside. Does even come with a manual. Well, this shows how to install the winch, so we probably have to assemble it, and I will do this now. And it should fit on those new metal front bumpers which have been released for the C34. So what's inside? Two plastic parts, a small gear motor, very tiny gear motor, wire with a plug like a servo plug, but it does have the plus and minus, not as usual servo plugs do have on one side, and the red, the plus in the center, as you can see here. I hope you can see it on camera. The center plug is nothing here. We'll see if I will use this. A little bit of rope. And further parts. All this is made out of plastic. And the hook. Yeah, the hook is made out of plastic too, unfortunately. Well, we'll see. And what's that? Some hardware. So I will try to assemble the winch now, and then we will see how it works. I will do some bench tests. So, build finished, and as you have seen, it was not totally hassle-free. It's not a really difficult build, but it's not an easy build either. And there is one major issue, and those are those screws that come with the winch, set, and you should use for mounting one of those plastic parts to the motor or to one of those plates of the gear. Therefore you need, of course, machine thread screws, and those are no machine thread screws. Those are screws for plastic or wood or whatever. So if you will use those screws, you will destroy the thread in the plate of the tiny motor. And I changed those. Fortunately, I found some fitting screws, and therefore you need 1.5 millimeter machine thread screws. You need one really short one, and the other one, as you've seen, was a little bit longer. It's not a problem with the gears, but yeah, those screws are not correct. And there's a further issue. That's the winch. As you've seen, I did not mount the plug and the wires that came with the winch. This is a normal servo plug, but with the wires plus and minus on the outer pins, so that's very unusual. Probably it's meant for the WPL receiver. I don't know, I don't have this. Anyway, I used red JST plugs, as most of my tiny ESCs have. But there's a further issue. Check this out. Do you miss something? I miss something. I cannot find any mounting holes, so I thought this winch is perfectly fitted for those metal bumpers. Those are those WPL C34 metal bumpers, but there's nothing to mount, so you probably will have to make your own holes, drill your own holes into the plastic. But how to mount those? I see so far no possibility to mount those on the C34 bumper. Anyway, it would stick much too much forward. Probably it's best to open the winch again and to mount from inside, but how does it look that way? No. And the bumpers are more that way, and therefore the winch is not large enough. So frame, probably have to make my custom mounting plate. I'm a little bit surprised because I've seen the videos of RC, and he didn't mention anything about those problems. And of course this winch does not have some electronic winch controller inside. It's only the motor, so have to use a normal winch controller, a speed controller for controlling the winch, as I do in my larger cars and larger winches. And therefore probably a lot of us, and me too, will use one of those 20 amp ESCs, those cheap ones, probably work fine, or even this tiny receiver powered speed controller. I made a video about this. It's only rated for 2.7 amp. We will see if it's strong enough. So first I have to think about how to mount the winch. That's really quite a bummer. Why didn't they deliver the winch with a kind of mounting plate? I will now power the winch with my lab power supply and check how much amp draw it has, if it's on full power, so that I can see if it's even possible to power or control the winch by this tiny speed controller. Probably I will use a second normal speed controller and plug it directly to the battery, because if you use such a small speed controller, it does only have a BSC of 1 amp or 0.8 amp. Don't know, sometimes it's written 0.8 amp, sometimes 1 amp, but that's not much. So if it's powered by this tiny speed controller, you of course will need a stronger BSC. Probably I could use, of course, the 3 amp BSC of a Hobbywing 1080, but whatever. I will plug the winch now to my lab power supply and we will see how much amp it draws. So I adjusted the power supply to 5.5 volt, and now let's turn it on and let's see if I stop the winch. Okay, here you can see the amp draw. It's only 0.71 amp, 1 amp. Since the winch is not screwed, the plastic winch, the spindle is not screwed to the motor shaft by a grub screw, it's only pushed and only fits by press fit. That's a kind of safer. So if I hold it, you see it will, and it goes to 1.3, 1.2, I hope I can see it, 1.4. And now I have the problem, I have to change the polarity to get it out, but anyway, that we will do with the speed controller on the winch and with a remote control with a transmitter. So I will set it up now, about 1.4 amp maximal draw, that's not too bad. So even this small ESC should be able to control the winch, but a BSC of only 1 amp, as this BSC has, will probably be not enough. So I will set it up now with receiver, transmitter, and let's check how it goes. Okay, hooked up everything for winch test. I use a 6-channel Flysky receiver, and for the first tests we'll test with my Flysky GT3C, because I can also use 2 different modes of controlling the winch that way. That's an 8-channel transmitter and I can program quite a lot. I use the BSC of a Hobbywing 1060, what's a 2 amp BSC, and I will use one of those red 20 amp speed controllers, those popular ones. That was my Flysky, to control the servo winch. Therefore, you of course will have to power up the second speed controller. Of course you can power it up with the same battery, but because it's easier now, I used a second battery, a second LiPo for this speed controller, and I will control the winch with a 3-position switch on my Flysky, and I programmed this to channel 3. But if you plug this signal wire of the ESC to the receiver, you have to remove the red wire, the plus wire, because you do not want the power of the BSC of the second speed controller to power the receiver. This is powered by the big BSC of the Hobbywing ESC. So simply pull out, lift one of the center tab, pull out the red wire, and you can cut it. You can use shrink tube, and now I have only used a little bit of tape to secure it so that there will not be any shortcut. And now I will plug it to channel 3 and I will power up the Hobbywing ESC, and I do also have to power up the second ESC. And now you see I have programmed, I hope you can see this here, stop. Channel 3 to this 3 position switch, and now I've programmed in that way that if I push the switch to one direction, the winch will run into this direction, will stop if I push this switch to the center position, and will go to the other direction. Come on. Unfortunately the hook is not very heavy, so you probably have to pull a little bit to the other position, to the other direction. So let's put it back a little bit. And stop. Nice thing in the Flysky and in those advanced transmitters, I can also make a momentary switch out of this 3 position switch. So I will switch off. Come on. Both speed controllers, and that's working that way. I go to reverse long, and the number of this switch is number 3. That's programmed to channel 3, and I do not want BNL. No, that was wrong. But I want momentary BMO. So okay, back, switch off, switch on, and now let's switch on this stuff again. First speed controller, second speed controller, and I hope this will work now. Yes, it does. So maybe you can see it that way better. So as long as I push to one direction, the winch or motor will run to one direction and to the other direction. So that's maybe the nicer way, but you can only do this with advanced transmitters, where you can program quite a lot. If you will use, for example, let's switch off this stuff. If you will use a Dumbo RC transmitter, this will not work. I will show you now how this works with a Dumbo RC X4, one of those super cheap transmitters which work fine. So I'll be back. So now I hooked up everything to my Dumbo RC X4, this fantastic super cheap transmitter with 6-channel receiver. It's an X4 with only 4 channels, and I will control the winch by this 3-position switch. That's channel 4 on the receiver. So but you only have this possibility to go to one direction, go to center stop, go to the other direction, center stop. You'll probably see it better if I so you see, runs, stop, runs to the other direction and stop. It works nicely, but you are not able to program this to a momentary switch in the Dumbo RC X4. And now let's test all this with this super cheap ESC, which is controlled by the power of the receiver. So this probably would be a very nice and easier way to control the winch, because you do not have a second speed controller which you do have to connect to the battery. But you have to consider that this probably will not work well with a speed controller with a weak BEC. For example, if you would use one of those red speed controllers, those cheap ones, they have a BEC of only 1 amp or 0.8 amps, so I don't know, it could work, but probably the power is not enough. If you use a larger speed controller like this Hobbywing 1060, most of the larger ones have 2 amp, that's sufficient. Or the 1080 even has 3 amps. So let's try this. Let's switch off. Wrong plug. The main first, the second small speed controller. I remove the red speed controller. Don't forget, if you use it as winch controller, to remove the red wire. Okay. And now let's plug this to channel 4. And plug it to the winch. And let's see if it will work. You can already hear the sound. And how nice! This is really a nice way to control the winch, isn't it? So if you are not on big power winch, this ESC powered by the receiver power and by the BEC of the main ESC is really a nice way to control such a tiny winch. Okay, and now let's test how much power this winch has. But first I will show you this setup with this winch controller, or this small speed controller with the Flysky GT3C, so that you can see that both modes will work with this ESC too. So connected to a Flysky 6-channel receiver, but it also will work with this 3-channel receiver, of course. And you see the momentary function works with this speed controller too. And now I will program it to the normal mode so that you can see that this works too. Don't show this to you now. Okay, programmed, switch on, and now you see no momentary switch anymore, but the same way as the WPL RC controls the winch. Center position, stop, one direction, stop, other direction, stop. Okay, and now let's test how much this winch can pull. Therefore I even could use this tiny speed controller, but because, as we have seen in the beginning, the motor can pull about 1.3 amps, so the BEC of 2 amps and the speed controller that can has a maximum amp of 2.7 constant and even 10 peak will be sufficient. So guys, I hope you can see. That's my test setup. I made this some time ago to test the force or the power of servos. I hooked up the winch here. That's a simple luggage scale. and yeah, I will not mount because it hasn't any mounting holes anyway. I will simply fix it with my finger and we will see. I hope you can see it on camera too. So, wrong direction, and now it can pull 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, 2 kilograms. Nice. Stop. Second test. Again 1.5, 6, 7, 8, and 2 kilograms. Not bad. And that with this tiny speed controller. I think it will be not stronger with the other speed controller, but nothing easier than a simple test. Let's test with the other speed controller too, and hook it up again. It made 2 kilograms with the tiny speed controller, and now with the large speed controller, 20 amps, it does make even less, but it's the same. Oh, even a little bit more, 2.4, 2.5. Second test with a larger speed controller. Okay, it's stronger. 3 kilogram, more than 3.5 kilogram. Nice. 3.5 kilogram with a 20 amp speed controller. So, if you want big power, use a speed controller that's not powered by the receiver, but if you want a simple way to plug in everything, use this tiny eeny-weeny speed controller. It's fantastic. So guys, final conclusion. WPL Winch. As you've seen, it's really strong. It's really strong. With this 20 amp ESC, it can even pull 3 kilograms. It can pull or lift a WPL car. And if you want a more convenient way to control it, this tiny eeny-weeny speed controller powered by the receiver is even the better way. More convenient way. It's really nice. What's really a bummer, that there is no way to mount the winch. So I will probably make a bracket, some kind of plate or whatever here, and open the winch again and mount it to a mounting plate, because it will not fit to the bumpers of the C34 and to the frame of any WPL truck. I'm surprised. I saw the review, or was it promotion video, I don't know, of Run That RC. Don't get me wrong, I really like his channel, but he didn't mention this at all. And the second thing you have to consider, check to get 1.5mm or M1.5 machine thread screws, short ones, to mount this plastic spindle to the motor gear plate, because the thread of the gear plate needs machine threads and not the screws that come with a set. What's really nice, this kind of slipper clutch. So this plastic spindle is not screwed or fixed on the motor shaft by a grub screw. It's only press fit, and so far, as you have seen, it does not slip, only sometimes a little bit. I feel it. You probably did not see it on the video, so that's good for security reasons. Plugs, I don't know why they deliver those plugs. If you plug the plug coming with the, where is it? I don't know where it is anymore. If you plug this plug into a receiver, you probably will damage, or is it here? Yeah. You probably will damage or even destroy your receiver, so take care, because you see red plus, black minus GNU, but red has to be in the center position. And if you plug it that way, because it's a normal servo plug, to the receiver, you probably could damage something severely. However, nice little gadget. I'm even not sure if it should be mounted that way, or maybe it could be mounted that way. And the hook is coming out here. We'll test, but it won't fit on the frame rails anyway. Maybe it should be mounted that way. Would be a good option too. We will see. However, guys, nice little gadget, not perfect, but we will make it work. Thanks for watching. Yeah, see you in the next video. I'll be back.